In terms of strengths, every single person with autism is different. You'll have some people with autism that are amazing at maths and very logical. You'll have some people with autism that are amazing at music, very musical, very artistic and very creative. But not everybody is exactly the same. In general, I'd say that most people with autism have a very good ability to pick up the details of things.
In school, Alfie, who's your best friend?
Moss.
Moss is your best friend?
He is.
Show a picture of Moss. There's Moss. Is he a nice dog?
Yeah.
When you come to school, what kind of things do you like doing at school?
Ooh, I like doing maths.
So you're good at maths, Sam?
Yes.
What's your favourite thing in maths that you like doing?
Time.
I'd describe autism to a brand new teacher as a developmental disorder that affects social communication and the way that the individual sees and interacts with the world.
So ASD is autism spectrum disorder. ASD often comes with behaviour as well, and I think the difficulty at the beginning is to try and distance the behaviour from the child. So actually, what am I going to do to support the learning in there? And I do find particularly at our school, and I'm sure it's the same at many other schools, is the support from outside of the classroom, from elsewhere in the school, really makes a difference with dealing with children with any kind of additional need really, but ASD in particular.
I think one of the key shifts can be seeing pupils with autism as different and not disabled in that regard. There's a little bit of respect to the individuality of pupils who think differently and see things differently and need things to be done differently.
If you are a new teacher, embrace the experience. I think it's very difficult when you're a new teacher because you want everything to go perfectly, you want all the behaviours to work well, but actually accept that that's not always going to happen and find the people within the school who can be supportive. What you have to do is know each of your children well, because they will all need something else. And there's a little bit about, actually, I think this is how they might react, I think this is what they will need to help them, but actually have a plan B. And every new child with ASD, you've got to kind of relearn their pattern of being, really.
We ensure that all teachers have a huge range of training, and we spend quite a lot of our budget on professional development for our teachers and for our teaching assistants. So there are core courses that any new member of staff will attend, and they centre around behaviour management, structured teaching, attention autism, and they're the sort of the core offer that this school has.
In terms of training at our school, because we have a resource provision for children with behavioural difficulties, pretty much everybody is team teach trained, which is around supporting children with behavioural difficulties. So there's a part of that which is about physical intervention, but the most of it is about understanding the cycle if children's behaviour is difficult, and actually how you can support them and how you can put things in place to try and mitigate against any behaviours that there might be, to support not just children with additional difficulties, but actually to make the whole class work. All of these things are good practice for all children, really.
Chloe is significantly affected by her autism. She's pre-verbal. At the moment she's communicating via objects and via symbols. Attention autism, absolutely amazing strategy, and it's all about building joint attention and early communication skills in children. You start with a very motivating toy that will hold a child's attention just for 2 minutes or less. You then build up that attention by extending an activity out. Eventually, the children will be able to watch me model an activity for them, take the activity away, do it themselves, and then return. So it's building independence as well as a joint attention.
Social interaction and communication are really his primary needs, but his receptive understanding of language is far lower than his expressive. So Alfie does benefit from needing a lot of visual support and a lot of processing time. Alfie's also got some significant sensory issues and finds it hard to maintain emotional regulation. He needs access to a lot of movement breaks to help him maintain emotional regulation. If he didn't, he'd become really frustrated. He'd find it very hard to focus and attend and might lose some of the content of the lesson. What can we do if we don't have a good lesson?
We don't push.
We don't push people, no, we need to be kind.
But I have kind hands. I don't.
Sometimes a challenge mightn't be actually understanding their emotion, it might be expressing that. So we use a 5-point scale in class, from calm to increasing, through to being frustrated or the cross and very angry, and how at a 5 we never want to be at that. How can we bring that down before that?
Sam's strengths within the school environment is that he's a very able mathematician and he enjoys school, which is a very good strength of Sam's. Sam finds it very difficult to focus his attention within group work. His primary need is social communication and interaction difficulties.
Our faces on the emotion that how we're feeling throughout the day. It's okay to change how we're feeling throughout the day.
Yes.
Adults support him. This could be in the classroom when playing games with the pupils or on the playground. His underlying understanding of language is good, but when that social situation where there's more people and more distractions in the environment, that's where he finds it more difficult.
The reason for my classroom being so bare is to follow the attention autism approach, where I am the most motivating thing in the room.
Some of the ASD children I've taught become overstimulated if there are too many resources in the classroom or too many things on the table. So it's about finding the balance of resources, the things which will support them to do their work without that overstimulation, really.
We tend to use lots of songs, games. As far as visual, we use it's called colourful semantics, where the symbols are colour-coded to help the children to form sentences. The children really respond well to anything additional with pictures.
We've got a resource provision for children with behavioural difficulties, and several of the children within that provision have got a diagnosis for ASD. So those children have all got their own pod within within the provision room. So it's a separate little workspace. So they've got room to work in there. They're in there at the beginning of the day, and they have morning tasks before they come to the mainstream class. The pirate ship came sailing towards the light. Any bits you think are okay? What do you like about that? Brandon, what did you think?
But what's also really important is teaching pupils how to respond when routine has to change, because that's how life works and that's how school works. One of the pieces of advice we often give to mainstream colleagues is not just to remove something that's not happening that day, but actually explicitly talk about why it's not there and show visually what is replacing it.
Parents can really help and support us by letting us know things that are happening at home, by communicating via communication books in the morning, so that we know what kind of state a child has come into school with. Have they had any breakfast? Have they not had very much sleep that night? All of those things will impact on how that child's day is going to go, so I need to know them.
Photographs and videos get sent home on a daily basis by class teams, so that mums and dads can discuss with their son or daughter what's happened that day and what work they've done.
If the children are doing something at home, they can post that, share that with us, and then we can even share that in class if it's something the child wants to share. It's a nice sense of pride. The children really enjoy sharing those things.
In terms of concrete advice, there are 3 things that I would want teachers to remember. One is use visual supports. If in doubt, make it visual. The second thing would be functional assessment of behaviour is crucial. So behaviour that we see in pupils is communicating something, and our job is to understand what that message is and what need is being met by that behaviour, and try and introduce an alternative behaviour that meets that need as well. And the third thing is just about language, and basically mean what you say and say what you mean. Reduce language as far as possible. Avoid metaphors, avoid sarcasm, and use clear, concise, meaningful language.
I would definitely recommend doing something along the lines of the Autism Education Trust training, which is something that we offer as a school. Had I been an NQT and not known anything about autism, going on a course such as that just gives you the groundwork from which to work upwards with, really.
Well, I would just recommend to read as much as possible, to talk to people as much as possible, and get to know the child really, and look at what specific issues are and what's best fit really to help that individual child.
The Senko is a great resource if you've come up against an issue in the class where you thought you had it covered and it hasn't quite worked out. Go and talk to the Senko and say, look, I was hoping this would happen, this is the support that I gave and it hasn't worked. What can I do instead? And sometimes you just need a quick fix, and that is something that will help you just to get over that initial thing. But it might be there's a more structured support program that a child needs, but only through having that conversation with the Senko will you really, get under the skin of that. There are so many great things that you get back from children with ASD. You get something different from them than you do from the majority of your class, and they are the things that you hold on to through the years. You never forget some of the quirky and interesting things that they do for you.